So today, let's talk about the Smith Blade, the 21-in-1 titanium multi-tool. A lot of you reached out to me. There is a ton of excitement about this. So far, there is 19,000 backers, and it looks like there's about $5 million pledged for this already. And they only wanted like 181,000 to make it. So yeah, there is a ton of excitement. Thousands of people waiting in line for this tool, and supposedly they are buying CNC machines and they will have this up and running and out of their shop perhaps by the end of this year or even October, I think, somewhere around there. So let's dive into this tool. You're seeing some pictures of it on the screen. Does it look cool? Absolutely. But if you've read the title of this video, there are a couple reasons why maybe you shouldn't buy it, and there are many reasons why I did. All right, so let's just jump into all these negatives, get them out of the way, and then go on to the positive. Now, one of the first huge negatives is the price. Just to be upfront and honest, the pricing to some extent seems ridiculous at first glance. $250 for a multi-tool knife. Let me say that again. $250 for a multi-tool knife. Yes, it's titanium. Yes, it has a great blade steel and all that. But the Leatherman Arc is the same price as this tool. And you can buy the Leatherman Arc now on eBay, I feel like many times for around $200. So the Leatherman Arc in some extent is cheaper than this tool. And this tool does not have pliers, and it does not have some of the functions that you can get out of the Leatherman Arc. So that's a huge negative. We'll get back into all the positives of this tool. Yes, it has great blade steel and all that, but at first glance, it is missing some key ingredients that anyone should expect to have for $250. And then the Smith Blade, the Founders Edition, the Special Edition is $400, which just seems insane. So if a lot of people are worried about the Leatherman Arc and different tools just becoming almost like collectible editions that you can't even use, they're too pricey, you won't want to hurt, that is exactly what this tool feels like at first glance. It seems like it's meant for collectors. And for a little while, I was like, why are people all excited about this knife? There is so much negativity about Leatherman raising its prices, about how expensive it is and everything. But yet people go flooding, thousands of people go flooding to Kickstarter to pay hundreds of dollars for something that doesn't even have pliers. So yes, that is a big negative. Now, what's the second negative? Well, the second negative is that unfortunately, the base model will be made in China. So now the model that I'm getting will be made in Canada as the Founders Edition, and then I believe the Smith Blade 14-in-1. But they said to keep the price down, the base model for only $100 will be made in China. Now, what does that mean? Well, what that means is a lot of these people who are complaining about rising prices again, for almost the price of a Leatherman Wave, you are buying something that's made in China if you got the base edition. Yes, it's a cool tool, but it is made overseas. And so a lot of people have said, hey, I'm not going to support anything like that, especially for $100. There are a lot of other things I would rather support. So the third really big deal for me is that this tool has 4mm bits. Now that is very unfortunate because 4mm bits are pretty small. Yes, you can do some cool things around the house, just some projects, tightening cabinet doors, all kinds of things like that with 4mm bits. But from what I read and watched in some of the videos, it looks like they're talking about working in a car, on a car. And I thought, how are you going to work on a vehicle with 4mm bits? It just doesn't really seem to make that much sense. I could understand with a 1/4 inch bit driver, you could get different size bits and so forth. But these are very small bits. Yes, I understand they're trying to keep the weight down and all that, but oh, that's disappointing. I really wish these bits could be a little bit larger, or they could have figured something out But let's now go to the positives. All right, so let's talk about some of the positives of this tool. Well, the first positive is the blade steel on the higher end versions of this tool. So the higher end versions get the M390 blade, and they advertise this as a blade that can cut through other blades. Now there's plenty of promotional videos that you can watch and you can see what they're doing. And then the next tool that they talk about is the 15-degree adjustable protractor, which is sort of cool how they've made the blade to actually swing out. And as it swings out, it can become like a protractor. So that's pretty cool as well. And then on the back of the blade, they talk about it has a nail file. It has a bit retention storage spring, and it does seem like it's a pretty neat system how it stores the bits so you can see most of them. So one of the things that I really like about this too is the wire strippers in the frame of the knife. I think that's a really good idea. I would love to see that on some other multi-tools. I don't want people to steal other people's ideas, so I don't know. I wish there was another way to come up with this, but I really like this idea. That is really cool. Instead of having a separate wire stripper head, that you could just use the knife in the handle. Now, the next thing that we have is the metric and imperial ruler, which is on the knife. It looks like it's on the back of the frame or on the side of the knife there. And then there's a reversible belt clip, which is cool. Then there's the bottle opener. Not a huge deal for me, but I know a lot of people love that. The pry bar and the staple puller. Then, as we've talked about, it has 4mm bits. And then it has an ink pen bit, which is really cool that you can write with this. Now, I really like that idea. I think that's a great idea. I'm sort of excited to try that out. It has the sewing all as well. And then it has the glow-in-the-dark illuminator, radioactive tritium tube, so you can see it at night, which is cool. And then the ferro rod, the fire striker as well. There's a tungsten carbide metal scribe. There's an emergency glass breaker, a bubble level, and a 90-degree bit driver. And then also the extended roller on the edge of the blade. And all this comes in for only 3.3 ounces. So that's the big thing. That's what eventually got me in the end. I was like, why is everyone so excited about this tool? Super expensive. The base model is made in China, has 4mm bits. What is going on? Why would I want a tool that doesn't have pliers? But it has a ton of functions in a very lightweight frame. So I thought maybe you guys would actually be interested in seeing this. And in the future, after people have done thousands of reviews on it, I can still have it on hand to review. And it might be interesting to take this and review it against other tools and sort of put it up against the Leatherman Arc in a head-to-head review and some of the other brand new tools that Leatherman may be bringing out very soon. I've heard Leatherman is perhaps bringing out some keychain pliers, so who knows? We'll have to wait and see, but it does seem like things are in the works. By the end of the year, we will have some fairly cool multi-tools. And one of the big things that I really like that I read is they want to go ahead and make updated versions, maybe versions with pliers, and they want to keep the momentum up. So they don't want to just make the same thing over and over and over and over again, but they want to make new versions and keep innovating, and that's the cool part. So you have to be very careful because overseas they copy your work very quickly, but if Hacksmith can keep the ball rolling and keep innovating, maybe they can keep ahead of the copycats for a little bit at least. And especially with this premium material, it may make it a little harder to copy that, at least in titanium. I'm guessing in the next couple of years we'll have an aluminum version that's half the price made overseas of this, but we'll have to see what happens. Right now, it seems like a pretty exciting tool. Let me know what you guys think.